Well, hey, what's going on with you? You've got me one-on-one for a few minutes at least here, for a few seconds. How can I help you?
Here, hold on. Okay, my wife has given me lots of advice here.
There's Nicole. I've got somebody else joining, but
Yeah, I'm just kind of finishing up something I wasn't expecting to be talking right this minute.
gotcha. Hello, Nicole.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Daryl.
Afternoon.
Afternoon or morning, depending on where you're at, or
Fair
middle
enough.
of the night for some people.
I found that very helpful that you had all the time zones listed.
Oh, good. That was a suggestion from Virginia, and I agree. That is helpful. It's helpful for me too.
I always forget.
Well, Nicole, as we're just getting started here and people are getting logged on, do you come with any questions today or anything specific you want to talk about with your book project?
I do. So again, I'm starting from scratch here. Just re-downloaded your book, started reading it a little bit. And I'm really like when I first came to your class in the beginning of the pandemic and I had an idea of what I wanted to do. My vision has broadened somewhat since then. And I kind of like to talk through, I guess, with you and whoever else joins, kind of what I bring to the table and help me maybe see things from another perspective as to what would be a good direction for me to go in terms of what I have of value to offer in a book. I have some areas of overlap of my quote unquote genius zones. I'm just trying to figure out what they combine into that is worthwhile.
Sure. Well, tell me more about it. Welcome, Judith. Where do you want to start? Do you want to talk more about your genius zone, or where would you like to begin?
Yeah, let's start there. So I work as an IT project manager. I've worked in IT starting out as a developer really long time ago, before the dot-com bubble. But as somebody who was just one of those people who was really interested in the internet and reading Wired magazine, I thought that would just be such a cool industry to be in. And then moved into sort of management positions. I've kind of settled for the last 15 plus years on being a consultant, IT project manager. And, project managers are everywhere, but I tend to work as a consultant. And I think there's some advantages there. And I think that's something that I know quite a bit about and I'd like to share. Just things like, well, gee, you get to go to all these different companies, work on their coolest project, then leave, and then go to another company, work on their coolest project and leave. You don't have to be a part of the whole machine that's going on there where people have to act a certain way because certain people have different titles and they want to get an office and they want to get a raise. I don't want any of those things. I just want the project to do great. Really frees me up not having to be involved in office politics other than being able to manage it. Don't have to have annual reviews. And for compensation, whatever the market is paying, that's what I get. So if it's $10 more next week, I get $10 more. I get a $10 raise, right? So that's a good thing. And also, you get to leave. You get to leave. So there's been some places I've worked where the culture, I've worked in places where the culture is great. I've worked in places where it's really problematic. But you're kind of outside of that bubble and you can kind of go home and talk to your friends and your colleagues outside of that workplace and kind of laugh about it. And, I find it to be a pretty fun career to be sort of a roving project manager that gets to pick what I work on. And it's lucrative as well. So as a female in IT, I think I have a lot of experience and stories about that as well. Definitely it's getting better. Like when I first started out, I actually had to do some really ridiculous things in order to advance my career. I would, the way I dressed like I was a CEO, every double-breasted suits, had to cover up the fact that I had any, not a flat chest. Just a lot of things that you kind of had to do to kind of fit in with the guys, because it was all guys, in a way that's not, the last thing you want to be is appealing, and you also don't want to be too intimidating, but you also have to kind of manage the inevitable, can you take notes for this meeting type of thing, and being able to be treated the same amount of respect as my male peers. I have, I haven't had a long-term mentoring relationship with anybody, but I've mentored some young women, and they reach out to me once in a while, and we talk about things that are going on and how best to approach them. So I think I have some value there. Looking at a larger picture of my life, as a person working a 9-to-5 job, project management is just absolutely something that works perfectly with my skills, and it's really helped me to manage. And I have a lot of information that I've learned through different companies, as well as to how to deal with difficult people, how to deal with people who are bullying others in the workplace, how to deal with people who are bullying you in the workplace, how to deal with people who won't take no for an answer, but have unrealistic expectations that you can't put your name on and say, yes, I will do this. So there is that. And then there's also just sort of being in a rather buttoned down, kind of in tech, we kind of pretend like it's not buttoned down, but it really kind of is. As being somebody who, I was kind of a punk rock kid. That's still definitely a part of my life. It's something I love. I'm kind of out sort of the normal mold of what you would call just a regular normal person that you would meet on the street. I probably have different interests than a lot of people. So, and I guess the larger thing is just in my book, I want to make a positive difference. This is going to sound maybe a little goofy, but I recently watched a movie, and I think it's my favorite movie right now, and it is with Tom Hanks, and it is about Mr. Rogers.
I love that movie.
That's the kind of person I want to be in people's lives.
In fact, because of that movie, well, also that one in the documentary, I have a skateboard with Mr. Rogers hanging on my wall over here as a work of art. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. I want to be like Mr. Rogers when I grow up.
Same. So I guess that's what I want to kind of bring to the table is, I have some fun, snarky stories, but that's not really what I want to sell for my book. You know what I mean? I want to sell people solutions and hope, and I also want to make sure, however, that the lessons that I'm bringing forward definitely help to support my career as an IT project manager and help me get jobs. Especially now that I'm my own corporation now. I'm working corp to corp. There are those opportunities are much harder to get because they pay a lot better. So I want to position myself to be able to get into those, but I am middle-aged and I don't want to do this through my last working day as well. So I want it to be something that could also springboard me into something that utilizes the skills and experience I have perhaps in a greater capacity.
Got it. So how many years have you worked as an IT consultant, Nicole?
I just stick with 16 plus. I'd have to go back and check, but I change jobs every 6 months to 2 years, depending on how long the project is. So I've worked in a lot of different companies. I've seen a lot of different things and how things play out in terms of project management as well as relationships.
I hear that
And-
coming through as you speak. It sounds like you have a lot of experience, a lot of companies. So that's definitely part of your genius zone, is just that wealth of experience. You are a female working in a male dominated role or industry or sector, or whatever we call it. So that's definitely unique. And then you have this personality, this flair that is also a bit unique and different. So how do you see yourself putting that together to serve your audience? Well, first of all, who's your audience, and how do you feel like that background, those unique characteristics, are going to help you serve that audience?
Josh, this is as far as I've gotten. Just all
Okay.
these things swirling around, and I have no idea. And even thinking to things about, I definitely would love to have something that speaks to women. I don't know that I want that to be my exclusive audience. Yeah, I really don't know. But even in terms of like thinking about how you word some things like that, I mean, it's just kind of cringe to be like, for women, for girl bosses, for that kind of stuff. But
Right.
I don't know, something that just kind of brings in the whole concept of, fair play for all, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, is there anybody that you think of being able to help that you feel like this is a person that I'm uniquely qualified to help? And some of the places people get inspiration from is they'll say, I want to help people who are in a position that I was in 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because now
Yeah.
I've got the experience, I can go back in time and kind of help my younger self. That's one place that people get inspiration from, is looking at their former self and then trying to find that avatar out there in the world. Another
I
place is, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I've only had a little bit of experience with mentoring a few women, and not like I'm meeting them once a month or anything. They reach out if they got a question or something like that. But often when they're upset, something's going on, and they don't know what, and I find that especially these young women, and probably that was me then too. It's just been so long. They don't have very high self-esteem. They don't have a good gauge of where they should be putting boundaries, and they don't feel comfortable speaking up and enforcing boundaries, I guess.
Mhm.
So maybe they're being pressured into an unrealistic deadline because somebody very important at the company is like, it must happen January 1st. People always love to say January 1st, which is a ridiculous time. You've got a bunch of holidays in front of it. It's not even a working day, but January 1st, that's when this project has to be done, and they want to find somebody like 3 months before that,
Mhm.
and sort of outsource their failure. And people feel intimidated, like the executive director of blah blah blah, who's my boss's 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 boss, said it's got to happen by this day,
Mhm.
and how you navigate those conversations and say, well, we need to talk about the scope of what we're going to do. Here are the people that we have that are resources. We'll have to talk to them, figure out how long it'll take, and come up with a realistic end date. And when that realistic end date comes out past January 1, we have to decide, what do you want to cut? What do you want to put into a phase 2? Can you put more resources on the project to get it to January 1? You know what I mean? Like, here are your options. The option is not that these 4 people are going to magically achieve this by the date. The options are that you change the scope of what you want, or you change the scope of who's going to be involved in delivering that.
So do you feel like your audience is females, or do you feel like you want it to be broader?
I don't know, man. I just want to write a book that's going to help my career.
Okay, fair enough. So then if you want to write a book that's going to help your career, then the question is, who are the people who would need to read your book such that it would boost your career? How do you see your career being helped by a book?
Honestly, I feel like if I even just had on LinkedIn, you know, like the cover of my book and made a couple of posts about it, that would shoot me to the top of the list in terms of being hired. And the age that I am now, it's something to very much consider that ageism does play a part. People see people who are my age that are male, and they see an executive, see people who women my age, and they see a lunch lady. And I've only got X number of working years left. I want them to be as profitable. And I honestly feel like I'm at the top of my game, but definitely being an aging woman doesn't help me. So just having any book would probably help, because honestly, those people are not going to read it.
Okay, so do you want to boost your current career and just get more work and get paid more for it and have better projects to select from? Or do you want to change the type of work that you're doing?
Both. I'd like it to springboard to greater opportunities as well.
Okay.
So I
And
don't necessarily want to focus on project management, because I don't want to do that on my last working day.
mhm.
I would rather be somebody who's maybe in charge of helping companies improve how they implement project management, because boy, they do all kinds of crazy things, and they'll have half the room doing one kind of you know, there's different types of project management. And the ways companies are going about having two different systems, or trying to meld both systems, and not really, and kind of doing neither one a service, are actually hurting their ability to, you know, hit the business objectives that they're having these projects in the first place for.
Okay. So we all have dream jobs, and we have
Yeah.
realistic dream jobs, and we have unrealistic dream jobs. Is what
Mhm.
you're talking about your realistic dream job or your unrealistic dream job? Because I want to hear what your unrealistic dream job is if this isn't it.
I don't think it's entirely unrealistic. I think if I had a good enough book, and I had enough, you know, awareness about myself and my thoughts about these types of things, that I could have a realistic dream job, again, as a consultant, but somebody who comes into companies and shows them how to remove impediments from the people who are doing project management work by empowering them, embracing the correct, you know, not trying to, you know, one project, again, one word that'll probably gloss over everybody because it's, you know, that's not your field, but you know, agile is kind of the most effective, streamlined way of doing things. You can learn it in like an hour. It takes a while to master it in real life, but it's something that every executive take a half a day class, get certified, as long as everybody has the same understanding of the language of those things. Because it's like 5 meetings and 10 words. That's all you really need to know. If everybody has the same definition of things, and the company is, the problem with agile is it does rely on giving the people who are actually making the contributions the level of voice that they should have, in order to
Mhm.
point out, hey man, this is not going to work. You can't build this in a year because of XYZ. The old way, you didn't even talk to them. You just told them what you wanted. You threw it over the fence, and then, you know, let them figure it out, right? Having developers from day one say, this is a good idea, but there's another way we can approach this, and we can do it 2 months, you know, faster, with zero, you know, to zero detriment to the project. That type of, in the day-to-day sort of, you can't hide, because you have daily stand-ups every single day. What'd you do yesterday? What are you working on today? What's a blocker that's stopping you, so I can work on that while you're working on this? But that needs to be something that has to be organization wide. You know, it's great for me or somebody else to know how to do it, and then I teach my team how to do it, and we're all kind of going one direction. But if the overall company is trying to mess with these different things and saying, well, now we want to start measuring things, you know, your productivity by, something you're using to estimate, you take away the team's tool to use that because you're using it for something that you're going to base like their raises on. People are going to game the system and say, yeah, everything's got, yeah, that's a 10-story, that's a 7-story point, whatever, they're going to jack up what it is so they can look like they're more productive, even though there's absolutely nothing with their productivity as it is. By taking those over, they are taking away the autonomy of the team, and it's the autonomy that makes it work.
All right, so let's take a step back.
Yeah.
Let's look 3 years in the future, and you're doing your absolute dream job, realistic, unrealistic. What if you could pick anything off the shelf and make it reality 3 years from now? What would you be doing professionally? What would a typical day look like? Or what's the type of engagement that you would be doing that would just absolutely be the dream, the thing that you would love to do for the rest of your career?
I would like to be engaged by companies where they've recognized that this is something that would be of value to them, whereby that I would have the support of senior leadership for me to come in and kind of fix some things that are broken and, show them where they are and how those things are hurting them and what they can do to fix them. And to ultimately, through that, help them be more productive as a company, but also just remove all of these insane impediments that are being placed on people who are just trying to get stuff done in the most efficient way.
Okay, so would it be correct to call this high-level project management consulting? Would that be an accurate description?
Yeah, it's almost like high-level project management overhaul for your company. A
Right.
real examination of your processes you got going on now, a real understanding of what the frustrations are on the leadership side, as well as on the side of the people doing the work, and finding out what is the path forward, and it's got to be a shared path forward for the company.
Because you wouldn't be going in to actually do project management, you would be fixing the way they do project management. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the ideal job. Short term, that's probably not going to happen immediately, but that short term, I just want something extra on my resume to make me stand out a little better, as some other things are starting to work against me as I age.
All right. So who is the person who feels most acutely the pain of bad systems around project management or systemically bad project management? Who is it who feels that and says, this is the worst thing in my life and I have to fix this? I mean, in any given company.
Two levels. At a day-to-day level, people who work in a leadership position within what's usually companies now have a group called the PMO, Project Management Office. They make the standards, they create whatever little documents for training or whatever you're supposed to do. They're kind of leading the show in terms of what the body of, how we're supposed to be doing things. They're usually not very well empowered. They're usually overridden by literally any other manager at the same level as them within the organization. But the people who are most acutely feeling the pain, but may not be understanding why they are feeling the pain, is the CIO. If they have a CTO, the CTO. The people who are in charge of getting this stuff done by XYZ date and have to go to the board and say, we need more money, we need more time because we said we were going to do it this date and we were wrong. That kind of stuff.
Okay, so CTO, CIO, they actually make decisions about hiring somebody like you, but it's the other person who's actually feeling the pain the worst. Is that right?
The next level of pain is at the PMO. Those are the people who are directing people like me.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who feel it the worst are the people who are managing the projects, and the worse than that, the people who are actually doing the work from the projects, because they're just stuck in all this organizational molasses of, micromanagement of stupid things that does not provide value and takes away from time that could be spent doing something of value.
So how would you, in this role of being the high level project management system consultant, who is it who would run that up the chain so that somebody actually reaches out and hires you? Is it the lower level person complaining and then it goes up? And I mean, is it a lower level person finds your book and they read it and they say, we need this lady to come in and tell us how to do it, but they have to run it up the ladder? Is it the CIO going to a conference or and hearing about your book and they say, hey, we're going to push this down, we need this, and I'm going to push it down from the top? Is it somewhere in between? How would you get hired by an organization to do this high level project management consulting?
I honestly don't know. I don't have a lot of, although I have had a lot of experience in working one-on-one with senior leadership in my role, I don't really know how that works. I do know that generally speaking, when that type of thing happens, I haven't seen it happen well, but sometimes they'll bring in a company to help with project management processes. And usually they just make a bunch more rules. It would generally be people who are on the boards, people in senior leadership positions. And I think for that reason as well, I want it to be as easily consumable as possible. There is actually there's a book that I love, and I kind of want to use that as a bit of a hero book. It's something that I might even have it. Oh no, I have a similar one about being an S Corp up here, but yeah, it's a book you can read it in I don't know, 2 hours. Half of it's pictures, just sort of, drawing out what they just said, not a ton of text, like a page of text. The book I'm talking about is like the refreshingly brief introduction to Scrum. I've used that book so many times to treat people, to train people within one day, what their role is and how we're going to manage the project going forward. And I buy them a copy, and then we go and we sit in a conference room and we look through it together. And then I kind of pull up my laptop and I say, this is how we do it in the software. And, here's what you do. Here's how these meetings go. And it's a very set it and forget it. Agile is very set it and forget it type of thing. You have recurring meetings that happen, some every 2 weeks, some every day, some once a week. But once you get in that system after like 1 or 2, we call them sprints of work, everybody just knows, everybody shows up on time because it's the same time every week. It's the same thing over and over again. And it's a very efficient way of working together, and it fosters a lot of trust because you have a lot of communication, and you have a lot of communication also that is somewhat secret from the rest of the organization, where we talk about what went right and what went wrong and what the impediments were. And that's something that we keep to make choices about what we will not do in our next sprint and what we will do and what I need to escalate to remove blockers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we use Agile and Scrum in my marketing agency, actually, but I haven't heard of this breathtakingly brief intro book. So I'm going to ask my COO if she's familiar with that. So thank you for that. I loved the Jeff Sutherland book, though, the original Scrum book. I read that 4 times in 2 days because I loved it so much when I first found it. So you've got some homework here to do, Nicole, which is we need to figure out exactly who is the person that you want to target with your book so that it leads to hiring decisions for you as a high-level project management consultant, whether that's something that's going to get pushed up from the bottom or pushed down from the top. Because if you're writing the book for those lower level people who are on the front lines doing project management, that's one type of book. If you're writing a book for the CTO or the CIO, that's a very different voice. It's a very different approach. And so your strategy of how do you maximize getting the types of jobs that you want to get with the types of companies that you want to work for and being brought in the right way so that you're positioned in a way that you can do your job effectively. We need to figure that out so that we know how to write the right book for the right audience to get those results. Mm-hmm. And that's the homework to focus on, because if we can figure that out, mm-hmm. and we really nail that, writing your book becomes very easy from that point, because then you know exactly who you're writing this book for. If you try to write a book that appeals to the CTO, the PMO, the project manager, the lower level people, if you try to appeal to all those people, you're going to be scattered writing a book all over the place, and you're going to get paralyzed and you'll never finish the book. So we have to choose one of those people and zoom in on that person and say, this is the person who, if I can appeal to this person, then I'm not going to have any issues with getting all the work that I can handle for the rest of my career.
I have to think about this some more because that's a big question, but my initial response to that would be, my target would be people who are involved with hiring project managers and are aware enough of the kind of dysfunction that's going on within their company, people who are smart, they are respected by senior leadership, they are seen as up and comers, they see themselves as up and comers, they're seeking out new ways to bring value to the organization and also grow their own careers by, you know, saying, here, this is something new, we should be looking at this. I just read this and I think this definitely applies to our organization. I don't think people, I don't think C-level and above, I don't think I have a book in me that they want to read.
Yeah, well, and it sounds to
I
me
think they'll
like,
be impressed that I got the book though,
right.
right?
They'll be willing to sign the check. I mean,
Yeah.
the way it sounds like it's going to happen is there's somebody in the middle, like
Yeah.
you said, the person who hires project managers, and maybe this person sits under the PMO, maybe they sit under the CTO. I mean, it depends on the organization, right? But that person is either going to be able to have discretion to hire you directly, or they're going to go to the CTO, CIO and say, hey, I think we need to bring in this consultant because she's going to fix this problem that we have, which is systemic in our organization. And then the CIO says, oh, she's got this book. Yeah, she looks like she's an expert. Great. And he signs the check. She signs the check, right?
Mhm.
So does that sound like the way you can see it working?
I do. I think people at that level and people who are sort of have that focus about their career, that's kind of the focus I had when I was in the corporate world of like, how can I cut in line? How can I show people that I'm really, you know, I'm really worth actually moving up in this company and having a bigger impact in it. And I think those people are going to read it.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of it, but
Okay, well, here's your homework. Really zoom in on that person and figure out everything you can about that person, what titles they have, what different roles they play, how their roles overlap with other people's roles. I would actually identify 5 to 10 specific people, actual individuals with names that you
yeah, yeah.
know, and start thinking about those people and just try to become an expert on who that person is, so that when you go to write your book, you have this in your and you have it in your head. This is exactly who I'm writing this book for. This is who I'm talking to. Nothing else matters until we get that. But once we get that, it's going to make writing your book so much easier.
Yeah. Josh, and like I said, I just started rereading your book and, you know, it's been, you know, 2 years. I have to say that as far as I've gotten, which is not very far, I love the approach. It's very, I don't know what it is about deciding that you're going to write a book, but it's scary and it just seems like something I just never ever do. And it was very reassuring that this is not an impossible thing and it is something that is definitely within my wheelhouse to do. And I also like the way that you have now added it into sort of a time box thing, because I always wait to the exact last minute to do something. But if I know we are doing this in X number of months, that lights a fire under me. So
Well, that's great.
good
And
job on the improvements there. It was good to begin with, but
yes, you can definitely do this. I know a lot of people who are much less qualified than you who are writing books. So you can definitely do this and you can do a better job than most people.
thank you, sir.
All right. Well, thanks,
You've taken up
Nicole.
my time for today.
Well, I really wanted to dive deep on this because I feel like this is really key for everybody to understand this importance of identifying your ideal reader, your ideal audience, and why it matters, because it's such a matter of strategy with your book when you're trying to achieve a certain result, to know who you're speaking to get that result that you want from your book. And so I'm glad we were able to work through this a bit, and I look forward to you doing that homework and coming
I
back
think
and
it
sharing
does
it with
kind of,
us.
I think I can tie that in with the whole Mr. Rogers thing as well, because it's
Uh-huh.
eliminating those pain points. You know, where, you know, kind of with things cascading down, that it's creating these blockages that don't have to be there. And perhaps part of that message is, it really is about having good people and trusting them.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Well, Daryl, Cade, do you have anything that you want to chime in with for Nicole? I know you both work in organizations that deal with project management and such.
Well, just to consider the subject matter of a book to get better project management gigs, it doesn't necessarily have to be about project management. I mean, if you just look at the 9 areas of the PMBOK, it covers the whole spiel, right? And to target even further organization, you might pick a couple like communications and technical, and think about how could you improve the communications. Most PMOs fail because they're generated to solve a problem. They solve that problem. They don't disband. They start building a hierarchy. They get a bunch of project managers and, you know, a communication. The first time you see a PMO communication spot, you can bet that PMO is going to be downsized. When they start to kind of think that they're running the show, and they're really not. They're really facilitators and communicators and, you know, bringers of data. So the weak points in PMOs are communications and hierarchy. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's pretty different from my experience, but I appreciate that feedback.
Cade, what about you? Any input for Nicole? Any thoughts, questions?
I have been typing out emails and I have really not been focused on the bulk of the conversation, to be completely honest. So I'm sorry,
That's
Nicole,
fine.
nothing here.
That's fine. All right.
I love the honesty. That's great. Thank you.
Yep. Well, Daryl, have any questions come up for you about your book and your project? Do you want to introduce yourself to us and talk a little bit more about what you're working on or what you're thinking?
Sure. So I'm just coming off a gig as a senior director of technology and cyber for a government agency. And I was released because they rescinded the remote work and we wouldn't move. Right at the time, there was approximately 200,000 tech people laid off. And so I started looking for CXO positions. Then I started looking for senior director positions, then director positions. And I'm still looking for all those, but I've dropped down now to senior program management and senior project management, which I've done for 25 years because I need a job, right? So that's taken a lot longer and more effort than I would have expected normally. So I really haven't done much on my book in about 3 months, but the book is about fractional executives and it has 2 very distinct audiences. The main audience is an organization that can be government, nonprofit, or commercial executive who wants to know if they should consider or is already considering hiring a fractional executive. The other secondary audience is executives considering being a fractional executive, like an executive that's retiring or somebody who's managing multiple consulting engagements and wants to move to a CXO position, fractional, instead of just an advisory consultant. I'm about 5,000 words in. I've been about 5,000 words in for 3 months. And I haven't even opened the file except to jot down a note here and there. Because I'm getting pressure, family pressure and my own pressure to get a job and also to take care of myself and work out more and all that. So that's kind of where it stands.
Gotcha. We all have lots of life priorities, and it's sometimes tough to juggle them and fit things in like a book, which a book never feels like something that's urgent, might be something important, but it's rarely fits into that urgent quadrant, right?
So I'm
So-
thinking about blocking out some time, which will keep people from using my booking link in it. Maybe two-hour segments a week. I can get a lot done in 2 hours, especially when I use Bard or Chat GPT to suggest edits.
Mhm.
I find that helps me. I've always written columns and book chapters and all that, and I've been the guy that nobody has to edit. So, which means I'm kind of a perfectionist, right? And so what I find is the initial writing time goes a little faster because I trust the AI to pick out stupid stuff so I can go faster on my draft. And then when I'm looking at the edits, maybe half of them aren't on point and half are, and I can do the editing faster using the AI. So I found, let's just make something up like a chapter, and let's say it's going to take me 5 hours to write a chapter. I can probably do it in 3.5 now.
Mhm.
A solid draft. And then, you know, every time you write another chapter, then you revise it. And so it all hangs together. But so that's what I'm thinking about doing. Would you recommend? I can probably spare 4 hours a week without incurring guilt or hassle from my family.
Yep. Now, whatever works for you is the best system. For some people, it's they will program 15 minutes a day into the beginning of their day, but then they leave time if they want to keep on going longer. So maybe they program 15 minutes or schedule 15 minutes, but they actually end up doing 2 hours if they feel like it. Other people have to block out large chunks of time. I know people who have to go stay somewhere off the grid and block out 2 weeks to get a book done, and that's just the only way they can do it. So it's really whatever works for you, but time blocking is one of the most common ways that authors end up getting stuff done. Is they've got to just schedule it in and then stick to that schedule and make sure that they actually do it. For you, is there any challenge with accountability or actually getting it done? Or if it's on your calendar, will you absolutely do it?
If it's on my calendar, I will do it unless, right, somebody wants to interview me for a job or something heavy pops up. But yeah, I will do it. I do everything else on my calendar. So
Yeah. Do you work better in the mornings or evenings on book projects?
I work better on the creative efforts right after I've done a bunch of repetitive crap. Whether it's morning or afternoon, my energy level, other than about an hour and a half after lunch, is pretty steady. But what I find is, like, it's maddening applying for these jobs. A job will come up and 3 hours later, it's got 200 applicants now. So I'm fighting the AIs and people with their finger on the trigger. So I kind of have to get at it early in the morning. After I go about 2 hours on that, it feels like I need to do something else more creative. Work on social posts, or I could swap in my book instead, you know, and have it be 2 hours a day. But I think I could only make it twice a week with my book.
Got it. Yeah. So figuring out whatever works for you, whether it's morning or evening, beginning of the week, end of the week, after repetitive stuff, after exercise, before. Everybody's got their own system that works best for them. It's really just a matter of figuring out what works for you and then sticking to it. But if you can do 4 hours a week, you'll be amazed what you get done in the next 2 months. I mean, you can crank through a lot of stuff in 4 hours a week in 2 months.
Great, thanks.
One suggestion, since you're looking for a job and you're writing this book, and I assume the job of the book is to help you find a job that pays money. Is that right? Or, I mean, that would be a nice outcome, I suppose.
Yeah, that would be a nice outcome. I think the job of the book initially would be for me to up my fractional executive rate. I've only pegged it at a certain amount twice. And the rest of the time I end up in there at a lesser amount than I would like, that I know I'm worth. And so it's a credentialing mechanism for continuing to get fractional CXO roles, which is a type of consulting engagement. The difference between fractional and just consulting is you are that role. You're the boss. You have hire fire. You're able to sign contracts and act as that person. You just don't work 40 hours a week. And the secondary is, I had a nice, earlier in my career, I had a nice side gig going where I know a bunch of CIOs and COOs that are sort of retiring or between gigs, and I was staffing them out to other clients. And, you know, with 10 hours a week, I was probably making $5,000 a week on that side gig. And I just kind of let it go when I took a job and I stopped and everything is stale. But I think with that book, Staffing Fractional Executives, that would qualify me as like one of the 2 experts in the United States, because the general books on fractional executive, there's only one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of them on, you know, how to be a fractional marketing executive, but there's nothing on, except one single book on the whole environment of getting ready for, deciding if it's right, hiring and working with a fractional executive of any type, a generic one, instead of how to work with a fractional CFO, right? That's different. So long-term, I want this book to be ongoing and have conversations around fractional. I'm probably not going to go until I retire. I probably won't go the podcast and constant updating, but I would like to be able to, as a site, an hour a day, maybe get a new stable, they call it in the staffing industry, of executives that are retired, but not all the way, and people between gigs, and then get a stable of prospects. And I want to use the book to help me find and qualify me prospects for this. I'd like to do this for another 10 or 15 years on the side.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I'd invite you to do while you're writing the book is to document your progress and talk about it on LinkedIn every time that you work on the book. So if you work on Monday for 2 hours, when you're finishing up or wrapping up your work for that day, go onto LinkedIn and say, hey, I was just working on my book about XYZ or the title, and here's something I learned, or here's something I found, or here's something I'm researching that's interesting or helpful, or here's something I'm writing about that I found helpful for XYZ audience or something. But share something about the book. Don't put a link in to anything. Don't add an image, just text, just write plain text in your LinkedIn post and just talk casually about the book project and the things that you're learning and things that you find interesting or helpful. And do that just every time that you work on the book. Just make that the last thing you do to go post on LinkedIn. Don't spend too much time on it, 5-10 minutes at the most. Right. But that will, I think, do a number of things. Number one, it's going to tell people that you're coming out with this book sometime in the future. And number two, it might lead to job opportunities because you're going to attract the attention of the people who are your primary audience for the book and the people who can hire you to do things. But there's a number of benefits that you're going to get from doing those simple posts on LinkedIn. Kate was just asking, why plain text? Why no images? It's because that's what performs best on LinkedIn. LinkedIn hates links. Anytime you put a link in a post, LinkedIn buries your post in the feed. They don't want to show it to anybody because they want people to stay on LinkedIn. They don't want people leaving LinkedIn. So any post with a link gets buried. Images kind of look like advertisements. People actually tend to skip posts that have images. But plain text is the best performing medium on LinkedIn. Video can work okay. And there's some other tricks with, you can upload like slide decks, and sometimes those will perform pretty well. But typically it's plain text that works the best on LinkedIn.
Well, that's good. I've actually heard the reverse. So if you have that on firm ground, then I'm happy to have just learned that. That was worth the price of admission here, because what I've heard is that don't ever post on LinkedIn without an image, or especially, you know, put a link or two in there. And yours is contrary. I hope you've done the research, and that's
Josh,
a good
Oh.
thing.
he literally wrote the book.
Yeah, I wrote a book on LinkedIn. So it's now they change LinkedIn all the time, but this is how it works. Now I'm going to give you, everybody in the chat, a link to a guy on LinkedIn. I became familiar with this guy while I was writing my book, and this guy has just blown up on LinkedIn recently since I published my book. But this guy, I would say, if there's one person out there who understands LinkedIn better than anybody else in the world, this is the guy. And his posts are so helpful. If you just go look through his past posts, this guy gets into the nitty gritty science. So if he ever says anything that contradicts what I say, believe him, not me. But if you go look at his posts and just scan through his past posts, you'll see just tons of helpful tips for how to make your posts stand out more. I'm actually looking through him right now to see if he's addressed, but like he's got his post 4 posts ago. It's 14 steps to a successful LinkedIn content strategy. And he's got some gems in there. So anyway, go look through a few of his posts, and it's just absolute
Yeah, I've
gold.
got him up now.
Yep. Richard Vanderblom. He's amazing.
I was already following him.
Okay, great.
So
Yeah, I wrote my book and then I started following him, and then he really started pushing out a lot of content. And I'm like, oh, I need to go rewrite my book.
no. Well, good.
Yeah. Anyway, he's a great one. Well, cool. Well, great, Daryl. You're going to be back here next week, and we follow up with how the 4 hours a week is going.
I think I got a family thing next week.
Okay. Yeah, it's summer. Lots of people are doing vacations and everything. Yeah. Okay. Well, next time you come back, we'll ask you how it's going, and hopefully you've made a ton of progress with that 4 hours a week.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, Cade, you got anything for us today?
Yes. And where's the camera? Oh, the camera has fallen down.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, so things have been going really well. I've been posting things that I'm learning, and I'm to the point where I'm seeing what topics are getting the most traction and feedback on LinkedIn. And my question is, I feel like, and this probably, maybe it's the engineer in me, I feel like I'm ready to start thinking about formatting. My book is a little different because it is going to have some equations, and there is going to need to be, it might be just like a little bit more format sensitive than some other type of books. And so,
May I
yeah,
ask
where
what the
can I learn
topic
more
of
about
your,
KDP, right? That's what you recommend.
may I ask what the topic of your book is?
Oh, my book is how to do computational fluid dynamics in the industry as compared to academia.
Yeah, you want to talk about technical stuff. Cade is, I think you win an award for the most technical book that has ever been brought before me, Cade. So.
Well, we'll hope it does well. So, and cool story for you. So I was in Germany for a conference, and I had met, there was a guy doing part of the teaching, and he had just been on a podcast, and he was talking about just asking people. He wrote a very, very technical textbook when this field was really starting. And so I emailed him and I asked him if he would help me co-author it. And he declined before the conference, but then during the conference, the more we talked about it, I could tell he was interested in the topic, and he's offered to help more. So you totally got me over the hurdle of like sharing it with people, and having his name on it, even if he just writes the foreword, will be like the equivalent of like Michael Jordan signing your brand. Like that's what
That's
it is in
great.
this industry. So excited. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's great. Just for Nicole and Daryl, Cade had a doubt several months ago. He wanted to kind of keep his content private and not share it. And so I pushed him. I said, no, I think you should be telling everybody about it that you run into. Nobody's going to steal this. Nobody else wants to write your book. And the more you share it, the more you'll find collaborators and other people who can help you. And so he's just reporting back that that happened. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So coming back to, is that a false concern again, worrying about formatting right now?
If it holds you up and gets you stuck, then yes, it's a false concern, because it's going to get worked out one way or the other. You'll
Okay.
figure it out. I mean, if you're drawing diagrams on napkins and right now, that's fine, because you can always, no matter what you have to do in terms of diagrams, illustrations, formulas, whatever to put in the book, somebody's already done it before. You're not going to have to reinvent the wheel. We'll
Okay.
figure out how to get it in there in the best way possible. I wouldn't worry about that right now. I would worry more about the content
Yeah.
and figure that out first. And once
Yeah,
that's
I
checked
agree.
off, then you can worry about the formatting.
Yeah.
Because also, you're probably not the formatting, graphics, design genius, is a guess, right?
No, but I guess the caveat there is if all Kindle needs is a PDF, I don't know if you've used LaTeX before. It's used often in scientific writing. It's basically you're programming your Word doc. Like I tell it where to put stuff. So I did get pretty proficient with that during grad school, my master's and PhD. And it's really easy for equations and symbols and all the nerdy stuff that we do. So it was more of just, if I start writing in LaTeX, I'm faster there anyway. And so if all KDP needs is a PDF, that's the output of a LaTeX file. So that would just work really nicely.
Yeah. I mean, I just did some quick Google searching here. You're not the first person with this question. There are people saying, what do I do publishing a math book? And somebody said, fortunately, the updated Kindle software now supports Greek character set.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so I mean, other people have
Sure. Yeah, I'm not
actually,
first,
and
sure.
that's a post from 2009. So
yeah,
this has been done before. And you can find somebody who will show you exactly how to do it yourself, or somebody who can just do it for you, which is probably what I would recommend. I would recommend getting all the content ready and then finding somebody who's an expert on getting that into Kindle and just say, hey, here's my document. Can you format this for Kindle? And let them take care of all the typesetting, the diagrams, the formulas, all that stuff. I just wouldn't worry about it at all.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, no, this is great. This time will work much better for me. So I hope to be here much more regularly than I have been the past few months. But even though I haven't been here, I feel like I have been getting in a rhythm of just posting more, and I'm seeing it really pay off. So it's been interesting. I think in January when I joined, I was at like 1,100 followers on LinkedIn, and I'm at like 8,000 now. So it's gone decent. So
that's great.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, the LinkedIn. I was just curious because I've been posting pictures of textbooks that I've been reading and just kind of like summarizing some things that stand out. And I think for engineers, maybe the textbook is more endearing than advertisement. So I've noticed my best posts are not plain text, but that's just me specifically. So I was just curious, but
yeah. So I mean, the image link, plain texting, that's a general rule across the board.
Obviously,
there's
it's
always
what's the audience
exceptions.
engaging with, right?
Yeah. And so if you have an audience that is tuned into visuals and visuals is really how you do your thing,
Yeah.
then maybe you're going to be the exception. There's a guy called Marketunist that I follow, and he does funny cartoons about marketing.
Okay.
Well, they're cartoons. He literally cannot
Yeah.
do anything on LinkedIn unless he's posting images. So every
Yeah.
single post has an image, but his posts do really well because
Yeah.
it's amazing, great, custom,
Yeah.
unique content. But generally speaking, if you have a post and you're trying to communicate something to somebody and you have helpful information, and then you say, I'm going to post the plain text, and you do an A/B test and you do it with an image, the image one is going to do like 30% not as well as the one that's
Really?
just plain text.
Okay.
People have run tests on this stuff. The link one is really the killer though. I mean, if
Yeah.
you put a link in there, it's like you're dinged like 90% in terms of exposure.
Yeah.
It's huge.
That's crazy. Because so I had 2 of my top performing posts last week. And what I noticed more than anything was LinkedIn rewards the consistency of daily posting. But
Yeah.
that is so like, and I think I got deep work recommended from you. Like LinkedIn just kills deep work because it's exciting, right? Something goes crazy and it's like, oh, I got to check. And then it's just killed my productivity. So I've had to I feel like I'm turning into a social media marketer because I schedule them now so I don't even get on, and then I delete the app and I don't check it till later. But it's like, oh, it just kills my thinking for the day if I ride the wave and try to watch it. So I'm still having this love-hate relationship with LinkedIn of it's nice to get the feedback, but at the same time, it's just a brain suck for me.
Yeah.
So
But you're seeing the payoff. I mean, getting from 1,000 to 8,000 followers in less than a year, like that's huge. That's phenomenal growth on LinkedIn. And if you're not already seeing the real tangible business results or career results from that, you definitely will.
well, and that's
So,
oh, Josh, I'm just like, this is so difficult to find people in my field who have done what I'm trying to do. Like, I know they're out there. I know they are because I cannot be the first one. But the transition from full-time work, like tied to a consulting company in engineering, to a creator, like hub and spoke model, whatever you call your map, courses and stuff, like I'm so ready to quit my job, but at the same time, I realize the value, like the software I use, it's $55,000 for a license
yeah.
to do this stuff. So it's like just trying to time it
Yeah. There's your
right.
handcuffs, right?
Yeah, yes. And so I know it'll come. And I think that's just the thing I'm realizing is I had a
Yeah.
really good talk yesterday with a friend in the company. And he was just suggesting, like, how can you take your current role and make it fit what your future role will be as much as possible? So you're just overlapping, like, anyway. But I'm getting like side requests to do CFD jobs and to do other things. And yeah, there's just not enough time. Yeah, this is cool. It is so cool. Like just another validation. Like I had a professor from India reach out to me and say, hey, will you guest lecture in our class on this topic and what it's like? And all the noobs coming out of undergrad just, hey, help me find a job. And it's like, so that's the next step is I think I can peel off a course, how to get your first job using LinkedIn really easily to
Sounds like
start helping get the cash flow coming, right?
yeah. Sounds like you're blown up. Have you ever read any books by Benjamin Hardy? Ben Hardy?
No, and I just saw his one this week. 10x is better than 2x.
Yeah. So as you're talking, I'm like, oh, you've got to read these 2 books. So one is the 10x is easier than 2x. The other one is Future Self.
Okay.
Check those both out. They're both quick,
Okay.
short reads.
Okay.
But read those because I think you'll be inspired.
Okay.
I don't know which one you should read first. They're both great. But
Can you give them to me one more time?
yeah, Future Self. I don't know if that's the whole title, but I mean, Future Self, Ben Hardy, that'll pull it up. And then the other one is just 10x is easier than 2x, but you just search for 10x Ben Hardy and that will come up in Amazon.
Okay.
maybe
Kids
I'd
will be
read
able to
Future
just
Self
pass it.
first and then 10X,
Okay.
because the 10X is going to make you want to do stuff like,
Okay.
and the basic premise of 10X is if I came to you and I said, Kate, I want you to double your income over the next year, well, you could just do that by working harder. You might
Yeah.
just say, well, I'm just going to do twice the work and then
Yeah.
I'll make double the money. But if I say, I want you to 10X your income, you're like, well, I have to come up with something totally different than
Need a
what
new
I'm
paradigm.
doing. I can't work 10 times harder.
Yeah.
And that's the premise of the book, is that if you challenge yourself to 10X things,
Yeah.
hi.
Can you say hi? This is my
Oh, we got a
friend
couple.
Josh.
Hi.
Yes.
But if you challenge yourself to 10X things, you have to you have to take a step back and say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to have to look at something totally different than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you might figure something out, like a course or something, or you might
Mhm.
say, I'm going to go out and, I mean, if people are asking you to speak, maybe there's an opportunity there. And maybe you could say, I'm going to start going out and I'm going to start doing speaking gigs and I'm going to charge
Yeah.
$5,000 and then I'll move up to 10 and then I'll move up to 20 once I get my book out. And there's just all these opportunities that come out when you start thinking totally differently about your work versus just working harder.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I looked at the Amazon preview and I read part of it, and that, yeah, it was like, oh my goodness, it forces you to think. You just got to change the way you think about the problem and redefine it. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, kiddos are summoning me for lunch. Thank you for your help.
Yeah, you just got mobbed there. Like,
I know they all barreled in, huh?
it's like those videos where there's like 20 golden retrievers, puppies going after somebody.
That's right. Thank you for the help, Josh.
Yeah, great to see you
Yep.
again, Cade. And
See you
I'm
next
so
week.
glad to hear that things are going well for you.
Yeah. Thank you for the help. Really, it's been so good. So
Awesome.
yep.
Have a good
See ya.
one. Talk soon. Bye-bye.